students, and welcome back to Study Room. So, as I told you, the next thing we're going to do is impact on the environment. Okay, that means we're going to look at what impact does the fuel that we use as a source of energy have on the environment. Okay, let's go. So it says here burning fossil fuels. So we know that the major chunk of the energy that is produced is through fossil fuels, and we also know that the fossil fuels are probably the most polluting source of energy. They release a lot of smoke, they release a lot of greenhouse gases, and they're very harmful for the environment. Okay, so burning fossil fuels causes air pollution. The actual operations of a device like a solar cell may be pollution free, but the assembly of the device would have caused some environmental damage. What does that mean? We learned that a solar cell or the solar panel, that is generation of electricity through solar energy, is a relatively or actually a zero pollution process. Like the solar cells, they just take the energy from the sun, the electron is released, and there is current electricity generated which is used for different purposes. So there is no smoke as such released, there is no greenhouse gases released. So you can say that it's a pollution free process, right? Yes, it is a pollution free process in its functioning part. But when we are assembling the solar panel, or during the assembly of the solar panel or making of the device, manufacturing of the device, there is a lot of environmental damage that takes place. Okay. And the next thing says that research continues. The last paragraph says research continues in these areas to produce a long lasting device that will cause less damage throughout their life. Okay, so what is our aim? Basically, our aim is that the source of energy shouldn't produce or shouldn't pollute the environment like the fossil fuels also, but it should also be like solar cells, that they don't pollute during their working or during the process of generation of electricity, but when they're actually being manufactured, it does a lot of environmental damage. So we actually need to find a source of energy that doesn't affect the environment in any way, in not during manufacturing or during the process or during the functioning bit of it. Okay, now let's do this question. Can any source of energy be pollution free? Why or why not? Now, how will you answer this question? You will answer this question by looking at all of the sources of energy, the conventional and the non-conventional sources of energy in totality. So we saw that a lot of sources of energy like the wind energy, like solar energy, like hydroelectricity, all of these sources of energy do not actually pollute the environment in an obvious way like the burning of coal. It does not release any smoke, does not release any greenhouse gases, but they have some other kind of side effects, like we just studied that solar panels during their making or manufacturing have a lot of harmful environmental effects. Then we saw generation of hydroelectricity. We have to make dams. For that, huge areas of agricultural land or land where plants have been growing has to be submerged in water, so the land there or the plants there start respiring anaerobically. That is bad for the environment. Then what else did we see? We saw that the wind energy, even though it does not pollute in any way such, it is very expensive to set up. So there is some kind of, okay, so you won't use the wind energy point because there is no pollution as such. So you will say, you will talk about the hydroelectricity and you will talk about solar energy. You can take these two cases, right? So you can talk about them by saying that you will first start your answer by saying no. No source of energy can be pollution free, because you will write 1. Even if it's pollution free in its working, example you will give solar panels or solar cells. They might pollute the environment during manufacturing, right? That's what we saw, that they actually pollute during the manufacturing process, not during the functioning process. Then I'm writing very fast, you can write it properly in your words. Okay, then you can give the example. The second example we can take is hydroelectricity or hydropower. You can say no such smoke, or I'm just writing greenhouse gases as GH gases. I'm using all short forms that you're not supposed to use because I have to write fast, okay? No smoke or greenhouse gases released, but large areas of cultivated land. This cultivated could be for agriculture or just normal grass, right? Cultivated land submerged in water, and anaerobic respiration. Again, I'm writing in short form, write it whole sentence. Submerged in water, causing those plants to respire anaerobically, which is bad for the environment, right? Anaerobic respiration. And if any other example comes to your mind, you write that also, just to prove our point that even though a source might not obviously pollute the environment, it will have some or the other kind of bad effect on the environment. The only thing that I can think of which would not at all have any bad effect is biofuel, because biofuel, in it you are using all the waste products only, and what you're getting as a byproduct is what is manure, right? It is, what is it, it can be used in, it is like fertilizer only, it can be used by the farmers in their fields, right? But the gas also produced is 75% or something methane, so that can also be one con of that, but that is the less obvious pollution one, like it does not produce any kind of, so to say, pollution. But you don't have to mention it in this question, it just came to my mind, so I told you, right? So you can write these 2 points, and if any other point comes to your mind, you can write that also. Okay, the next question says that hydrogen has been used as a rocket fuel. Would you consider it as a cleaner fuel than CNG? Why or why not? Okay, so here, do we know what the full form of CNG is? Do you remember what CNG stands for? So you will start the question by writing that CNG stands for compressed natural gas, right? I hope you all know what CNG stands for. It stands for compressed natural gas. So you will write that actually CNG contains hydrocarbons. What are hydrocarbons? Hydrocarbons are compounds of hydrogen and carbon. So when these hydrocarbons are burnt, that means, by burnt I mean when they are used up, when CNG is used in cars as a fuel, so they are burnt. So when they are burnt, it releases carbon into the air, carbon into the environment, which is a pollutant. Okay, so carbon is a pollutant, therefore CNG you would not consider it as a very clean gas. But hydrogen is an absolutely clean gas because it does not have carbon or any other element that can be released into the environment, which would be damaging for the environment. So we write that because hydrogen is a cleaner fuel, it does not release any bad materials or components into the environment. Thus, yes, it is a much cleaner fuel than compressed natural gas or CNG. Okay. Now, depletion of sources. So we have already studied about renewable and non-renewable energy. We know that the non-renewable energy sources are the conventional sources, and the renewable energy are the non-conventional sources. We know that geothermal energy is always going to be there. The earth has always going to be some heat inside it. Solar energy, the sun is going to give us light for the 5 billion more years. Wind energy, wind is always going to keep blowing. Hydropower, biomass. But fossil fuels, natural gas, coal, and last but not least, nuclear. So you might ask, how is nuclear energy non-renewable? There are always going to be nuclei or atoms in the atmosphere, in the world. So why is nuclear energy non-renewable? That is because even though nuclear energy as such is renewable, but the components or the elements that are used to generate nuclear energy are actually not renewable. Say uranium, the pellets that we saw, all of those things that are actually used to generate nuclear energy are non-renewable. That's why we classify nuclear energy as a non-renewable sources of energy. Okay, so by depletion of sources, what do we understand? By depletion of sources, we understand that because mankind is not slowing down their technological progress, they are not slowing down their pace of growing in this world, all of these sources are getting depleted or contaminated. Even though water is considered a non-renewable source of energy, but the water in our world is being contaminated at a very high rate. The governments are trying to control it, but unless and until we as citizens and as people who are living as in this earth make a change, there is going to be no change that will be seen. Okay, so and the non-renewable sources of energy is very obvious because these have a very long time they take to get replenished. Like we saw fossil fuels or the fossils take millions of years to get replenished. Natural gas, coal, all of this takes millions and millions and millions of years to actually form again. So they are non-renewable. Okay. And even though these other sources, these non-conventional sources are so to say renewable and they will not actually run out, but they are also being continuously contaminated, right? Like I gave you the example of water. Okay, let's move on to do some questions now. So the first question says, name two energy sources that you would consider to be renewable and give reasons for your choices. Okay, you can choose any two. I'm choosing my two. You might not take my two as your answers. You can choose any of yours. Okay, so first I will take solar energy. Okay, so the reason I would give suitable reasons, the reason I would give is the sun is going to give us light for 5 billion more years. We get sunlight every day for a large part of the day. So it is renewable. We keep getting the sunlight no matter what happens, right? So these are my reasons for solar energy. Then if I want to say, I would say, if I have to consider renewable, I would say wind energy also. And same would be my reasons that wind is always blowing, even though, yes, definitely, at some places the wind is not as fast so as to set up windmills, but at the places where it is fast, as fast that you can set up windmills, at those places, wind is always blowing, right? Even if wind stops for a day or two, it's not like wind is going to like just get finished, right? If we use up too much of the wind energy, wind is not going to get finished like coal or natural gas, right? So that's why I'm saying wind will always blow. And even if time dependent, by time dependent I mean even if not a very constant source, it will never get exhausted, right? And the main point, you will write this in both of these, okay? I'm just combining and writing it. The main point is that human activities or consumption do not affect the availability of these sources. You can't say this for, say, coal, right? Like if human activities goes up and we are only using coal, then coal will run out. It will get exhausted. But if human activities increases and humans are only using solar energy, will solar energy run out? No, it won't, right? That's why I'm writing this is probably the most important point about renewable sources of energy, is that human activities or human consumption of these sources do not affect the availability of these sources, and that's why we say that they are renewable. Okay, great. The next question says, give the names of two energy sources that you would consider to be exhaustible and give reasons for your choices. So first I would say coal. Actually, I would say coal and natural gas because the points for them is the same. Okay, so I would say coal and natural gas, one, because they take millions of years to get formed. right? And the second and most important point is they are affected by how much we consume them. Although solar energy is not, no matter how much we consume it, it is not going to get exhausted. By how much we consume them, they will get exhausted after one point. Okay, another example you can give is of nuclear energy, because you can write here that the elements or the substances used to generate nuclear energy, I'm writing nuclear energy, are exhaustible. Okay, and if you have anything else in mind or you have any more points in mind, you are free to write them. Okay students, so this is all for this chapter. In the next video, we're going to do a quick revision of this chapter. I'm sure you all enjoyed this chapter because it was actually a chapter that would have made you think about the things that go around in your life, in your world. I hope it did, right? So before the revision, make sure you've brushed up on all the topics so that when I'm doing a quick revision, I'll be going very fast. So you would, if you have revised it, it would like be a quick brush up for you and everything would be clear to you. But if you have not revised it, then you would be pretty confused. So I would suggest that you come prepared for it. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, students. Thank you and take care. Hello students and welcome back to Study Room. So as I told you in the last video, we're going to do a quick revision of the chapter that we did on sources of energy. Okay, let's go. So, it says that our energy requirements increase with our standard of living. We know this with the growing world, with the growing population, growing technology, so growing needs for energy. In order to fulfill our energy requirements, we try to improve the efficiency of energy usage and also we try to exploit new sources of energy. So what does efficiency mean? Efficiency basically means that we try to improve how much, say 1 kg of, I'm taking coal as an example, it is a very bad example, but coal is the thing that comes to mind. It can be, say, any other source of energy also. So say coal, 1 kg of coal used to give us some amount of heat. So increasing the efficiency of coal would be that same 1 kg of coal giving us double or triple amounts of heat. So if you just forget about the coal, efficiency just means increasing the final product or increasing the utility or usability of the products that we were using before. That is known as increasing the efficiency or improving the efficiency. Okay, and obviously finding new sources of energy, because we need sources of energies which do not pollute the environment in any way, even in their functioning or manufacturing. Okay, the third point says we also need to look for new sources of energy because the conventional sources of energy are at a danger of getting exhausted soon. Why? Because they are non-renewable, right? Okay, let's move on. Fourth point says the energy source we select would depend on factors like ease and cost of extracting. So what are these? These are the points of a good source of energy. Ease and cost of extracting, efficiency, again, how much of product or how much usability it can give from the smallest amounts we use. Okay, efficiency of the technology available for using that source of energy. That means, say in one place there is a lot of wind, there is super high wind, but till that point in time, if wind energy, or we had not discovered windmills and how to harness wind energy, would that high speed wind be any use to us? No, right? So for any resource to be put to good use, we need to have efficient technology to harness the energy from that source. So up till the point where our scientists and researchers discovered or made windmills, when they started manufacturing windmills, before that wind energy was not harnessed. So when windmills were made, the technology was efficient enough to harness the wind energy. So that is what this point means, that the efficiency of the technology available for using that source of energy. Not just a good source of energy is required, the technology to use it should also be there. Then it says the environmental impact of using that source. So these are the points that we consider apart from the other points that we studied too. Okay. The fifth point says many of the sources ultimately derive their energy from the sun, right? Because if you remember, we studied how everything actually derives energy from the sun. Like if we are eating, if I'm a non-vegetarian, I'm eating some kind of meat, right? And that whichever animal I'm eating eats some kind of grains or plants or something vegetarian, right? Where does that grain or plant get its energy? How do plants make their food? Through photosynthesis. And where does the photosynthesis happen? How does the photosynthesis happen? Because of the sun, right? And say if I'm a vegetarian, I'm eating plants. So, and the plants derive energy from the sun. So again, everything goes back to the sun. So that way only we can say that all sources ultimately derive their energy from the sun, even humans. Okay, so that is all for this quick revision. It was a very quick revision indeed. We did not do the individual revisions. That is why it is important for you to do individually about each and every source that we did. Have in mind some of their pros, some of their cons. Have in mind what you would write if you're asked about to tell about the best renewable source of energy or the best non-renewable source of energy. Have points about all of these questions. Think about why one source is better than the other. Think about in what situation one source would be better than the other. Think about all of these things. This is a very thinking based chapter. Okay, students? So I hope this chapter has started your brains thinking about these things at least a little bit. And I hope that you had fun studying this chapter. Make sure all of your concepts are thorough, because this is a very good chapter where you can score on, because it is not a lot of numerical. So there is that much less scope of making like mistakes in your math or in your concepts, right? So this is a very good chapter, not only for your general knowledge but also for your exams. So make sure all of your topics are thorough and make sure you remember everything. Okay. I hope you enjoyed learning this, students. Thank you and take care.